The stars flickered across the vast emptiness of space, uncaring witnesses to the brutal war that had raged for over a century. Ships exploded in silent bursts of light and debris, while entire planets bore the scars of conflict. Admiral Thorne stood on the bridge of the Alliance flagship Horizon *, his weathered face reflecting the blue glow of tactical displays. His eyes, once bright with purpose, now carried the weight of too many lost battles and too many funeral ceremonies. "Another colony lost, sir," reported Officer Dale, her voice flat from delivering similar news countless times before. "That's the third this month." Thorne nodded slowly. The Dominion Empire had taken yet another border world, adding to the growing list of territories lost to their relentless advance. The Alliance forces fought bravely, but for every victory, there came 2 defeats. "How many civilians?" he asked, though he dreaded the answer. Early reports suggest most were evacuated, but at least 5,000 couldn't make it to the transport ships in time. 5,000 more souls to haunt his dreams. Thorne turned away from the display, looking instead at the stars beyond the viewscreen. Somewhere out there, his counterpart in the Dominion fleet was likely receiving similar reports, counting similar losses. "This cannot continue," he whispered to himself. The war had begun over disputed mining rights in the Orion sector. A simple disagreement that should have been settled through diplomacy had escalated when an overeager Dominion commander opened fire on an Alliance research vessel. By the time both governments realized what was happening, pride and political pressure made backing down impossible. Now, a century later, neither side remembered the original cause. They fought because they had always fought, because generations had grown up knowing nothing but war, because the hatred had become too deep to simply walk away. "Admiral," called Communications Officer Reed, interrupting Thorne's thoughts. "We're receiving a transmission. It's unusual." Thorne turned back to face his crew. "Unusual how?" "It's coming through on a frequency we haven't used in decades, and it's registered to the Neutral Conclave." The bridge fell silent. The Neutral Conclave was a mysterious group of species that had removed themselves from galactic politics at the start of the war. They controlled no significant territory, but were rumored to possess technology far beyond either warring faction. They had stayed hidden for so long that many believed they no longer existed. "Put it through," Thorne ordered. The main screen flickered, revealing a figure shrouded in light. Its features were impossible to make out, but its voice came through clearly. "Greetings, Admiral Thorne of the Galactic Alliance. We have observed your conflict with growing concern." Thorne straightened his uniform. "To what do we owe this unexpected contact?" "We offer a solution to end your war," the figure replied simply. A ripple of whispers spread across the bridge before Thorne silenced them with a raised hand. "Many have tried to broker peace between our factions. All have failed." The figure nodded. Previous attempts relied on compromise. "We propose something different, a contest of skill and ingenuity. One challenge, with clear terms of victory." "And why would the Dominion agree to this?" Thorne asked. "Because we have already contacted them, and because both sides are tired of watching their people die." Thorne considered this. After a century of bloodshed, could it really be this simple? "What kind of contest?" he finally asked. "You will each select your best warriors, 3 from each side. They will face a challenge designed to test all aspects of military prowess. And the Dominion has agreed to these terms. They await your answer before finalizing their commitment." Thorne looked around at his exhausted crew, at the memorial wall listing thousands of fallen Alliance soldiers, at the battle reports showing dwindling resources and mounting casualties. "Tell me more," he said. The figure leaned forward, and for the first time in years, a small spark of hope flickered in Admiral Thorne's tired eyes. The morning sun broke over the jagged mountains of the North American training grounds, casting long shadows across the military academy. Earth, classified as a death world centuries ago due to its extreme environmental conditions, dangerous wildlife, and volatile geology, was considered a harsh planet by galactic standards. Jack Reed jogged along the perimeter fence, his breathing steady despite the thin mountain air. At 22 years old, he had the lean, tough build of someone who had spent their life fighting against gravity nearly twice as strong as most inhabited worlds. Behind him, 2 other cadets kept pace. "Think you'll break your record today?" asked Lisa Blackwood, her dark skin glistening with sweat as she easily matched Jack's stride. The daughter of Montana farmers, she had grown up tracking wildlife and reading weather patterns that could turn deadly in minutes. "Not if Marcus keeps talking," Jack replied with a grin. Marcus Wells, the 3rd cadet, rolled his eyes. Shorter than the others, but powerfully built, he carried a backpack filled with scraps of technology he had been tinkering with since dawn. "I'm just saying," Marcus continued, "the instructors are watching us more closely lately. Something's happening." The 3 cadets were the top of their class at the Galactic Alliance Military Academy, Earth Division. When the Alliance had discovered Earth 50 years ago, they had been surprised to find humans already adapting primitive spaceflight technology. Rather than fully integrating Earth into galactic society, they established a small recruiting outpost, recognizing that humans' natural resilience could make them valuable soldiers. Few aliens visited Earth. Its crushing gravity, unpredictable weather, and dangerous microbes made it uncomfortable and risky. Most galactic species evolved on worlds with stable conditions, mild seasons, predictable weather, and minimal tectonic activity. Earth, with its earthquakes, hurricanes, and extreme temperature variations, was considered barely habitable. As the cadets finished their run, they noticed an unusual shuttle landing on the Academy's main pad. The sleek vessel bore the insignia of Alliance High Command, visitors that the remote Earth Academy rarely received. "Told you something was happening," Marcus whispered. Academy Commander Rivera was already waiting when the shuttle doors opened. Out stepped a tall, thin alien in an admiral's uniform. "Admiral Thorne," Marcus breathed. The Admiral Thorne. Jack and Lisa exchanged glances. Everyone knew Thorne led the Alliance's main battle fleet against the Dominion. The cadets watched as Rivera and Thorne spoke briefly before both turned to look directly at them. "That can't be good," Lisa muttered. Within minutes, an Academy aide approached. "Cadets Reed, Blackwood, and Wells, report to Commander Rivera's office immediately." The office was cramped with the 3 cadets standing at attention before Commander Rivera's desk. Admiral Thorne studied them with piercing eyes that seemed to carry the weight of countless battles. "These are your best?" Thorne asked Rivera. "The best Earth has produced," Rivera confirmed. Cadet Reed shows exceptional adaptability in crisis situations. Cadet Blackwood's tactical thinking surpasses most veteran commanders. And Cadet Wells can engineer solutions with minimal resources that our best technicians couldn't imagine. Thorne circled the cadets slowly. "They look so fragile." Jack fought to keep his expression neutral. Humans might appear weak to other species, but Earth's punishing conditions had made them anything but. "Appearances deceive," Admiral Rivera said. "These 3 survived the Death Valley training course, the one we designed to simulate Dominion prison environments. They completed it in half the expected time." Thorne's expression changed slightly. "Is that true?" "Yes, sir," the cadets answered in unison. "Interesting." Thorne stopped pacing. "Cadets, how would you like to end a war?" The 3 exchanged quick glances of confusion. "The Alliance and Dominion have agreed to a contest," Thorne continued. "The winners determine the outcome of our century-long conflict." "And you want us?" Lisa asked, unable to hide her surprise. Thorne's mouth curved into what might have been a smile. "The Dominion is sending their elite Void Stalkers. We're sending you." "But we're just cadets," Marcus said. "No," Thorne replied. "You're Deathworlders, and that might be exactly what we need." The neutral space station hung in orbit around an abandoned world. Its circular structure gleamed dully in the light of a dying star. the perfect location for a contest that would decide the fate of a 100-year war. Jack, Lisa, and Marcus stood in the Alliance shuttle's main cabin, checking their minimal equipment one final time. They wore standard cadet uniforms, practical, durable, but lacking the advanced protection of full combat gear. "This is insane," Marcus whispered, double-checking the small toolkit attached to his belt. "We're going against Void Stalkers with basic equipment." Lisa shrugged. "Admiral Thorne must have a reason. Or Alliance Command has simply run out of options," Jack replied, tightening the straps on his boots. "When you're losing a war, you try desperate things." The shuttle docked with a gentle thud. Through the viewport, they could see another vessel on the opposite docking port, sleek, black, and covered in weapon mounts. The Dominion transport. As the airlock opened, they were met by a being of indeterminate species, cloaked in shimmering robes that obscured its features, a representative of the neutral conclave. "Follow me," it said. Its voice was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. The central chamber of the station was vast and circular. Across the room stood three figures that made the human cadets stop in their tracks. The Void Stalkers were nearly 7 feet tall, their gray skin covered in fine scales. Their eyes, 4 per warrior, glowed with a faint purple light. Their bodies were enhanced with visible cybernetics, and each carried weapons that looked capable of destroying small buildings. "These are the champions of the Alliance." The lead Void Stalker's voice was deep and mocking. "Children from a backwater world." Jack stepped forward. "We're ready for your challenge." The neutral mediator raised its hands. "The terms are simple. Deep within this station lies an ancient artifact. The team that retrieves it first wins the contest and settles the territorial disputes, as agreed by both factions." "What's the catch?" Lisa asked. "The station's automated defense systems are active. They will target all intruders equally." Marcus studied the holographic map that appeared in the center of the room. "That's a lot of ground to cover." "You have 3 hours," the mediator continued. "If neither team succeeds, the war continues." The lead Void Stalker stepped forward. "We accept these terms, and will claim victory for the Dominion." "We accept as well," Jack said, trying to project confidence he didn't entirely feel. The mediator nodded. "The challenge begins now." A loud alarm sounded, and doors slid open on opposite sides of the chamber. The Void Stalkers moved with practiced precision, activating stealth fields that made them nearly invisible as they disappeared into the left corridor. Jack turned to his teammates. "Thoughts?" Lisa was already studying the map they'd been given. "The most direct route will be heavily defended. The Stalkers will take that path because their technology and enhancements can handle it." Marcus pointed to a narrow maintenance shaft. "We could try this route. It's longer but might have fewer defenses. Or it could be a trap," Jack mused. "Let's think like Earthers. What would the designers of this station expect least?" Lisa's eyes lit up. "The ventilation system. It's not even marked as a path." "Because no one would be crazy enough to use it," Marcus said, catching on. "The toxin filters, radiation clean zones." Jack nodded. "Exactly. Dangerous for most species, but we've trained in worse conditions on Earth." "We'll need to disable the intake fans," Marcus said, already pulling tools from his belt. "And time the radiation pulses," Lisa added. Jack grinned at his teammates. "They expect soldiers. Let's show them what Deathworlders do." Without waiting for the Void Stalkers to see their plan, the 3 cadets raced toward a small maintenance panel that most would have overlooked. While the Dominion's champions were relying on their advanced technology and training, the humans were about to take a route no sane galactic species would consider. The race had begun. The ventilation shaft was barely wide enough for Jack's shoulders. He crawled forward on his elbows, feeling the vibration of massive fans somewhere ahead. Behind him, Lisa kept track of their position on a small hand-drawn map, while Marcus brought up the rear, tools clenched between his teeth. "Wait," Lisa whispered. "Radiation spike in 3, 2, 1." The The three cadets pressed themselves against the metal floor as a wave of purplish light washed through the shaft. Their skin tingled uncomfortably, but the brief exposure was within the limits humans could endure. That would have cooked most galactic species, Marcus muttered after the pulse passed. Jack nodded. That's why no one uses these maintenance routes. Good thing Earth's background radiation made us more resistant. They continued forward until they reached a large fan blocking their path. Its massive blades spun so quickly they were almost invisible. This is where our path meets the main ventilation hub, Lisa said. We need to get past this. Marcus studied the fan, then reached for his toolkit. I can't disable it completely without triggering alarms, but I might be able to slow it enough for us to time our way through. Too risky, Jack said. Look there. He pointed to a small access panel beside the fan. Maintenance override. While Marcus worked on the panel, Jack focused on the station map in his mind. They were making good progress, taking a route that the station's designers never expected anyone to use. The Void Stalkers, meanwhile, would be facing the station's main defenses head-on. Got it, Marcus announced as the fan speed dropped dramatically. We have about 20 seconds before the system notices and resets. One by one, they slipped between the slowed blades, timing their movements carefully. The last blade nearly caught Jack's boot as the fan suddenly accelerated back to full speed. That was close, Lisa said, her voice echoing in the larger chamber they'd entered. They had reached a central hub where several maintenance shafts converge. Below them, through a grated floor, they could see a wide corridor where defensive turrets scanned for intruders. Look, Jack whispered, pointing. 3 shadows moved with exceptional grace through the corridor below. The Void Stalkers were visible for just a moment as they deactivated their stealth fields to coordinate. One of them was bleeding from a shoulder wound. They're taking heavy fire but still making progress, Lisa observed. They're heading for the central chamber, Marcus added. But they're still on the long route. Jack considered their options. We should be able to reach the artifact chamber before them if we continue through the maintenance systems. As they moved deeper into the station, the defenses grew more intense. Automated drones patrolled some sections, forcing the cadets to time their movements carefully. In one chamber, they had to hold their breath for nearly 2 minutes as the air was briefly replaced with a gas toxic to most life forms. Finally, they reached a small access hatch. According to their mental map, it should open directly into the chamber holding the artifact. This seems too easy, Lisa said, her military training making her cautious. Not easy, Jack corrected. Just unexpected. The station's designers never thought anyone would come this way. Who would choose radiation exposure and toxic gas over fighting security drones? Deathworlders would, Marcus said with a grim smile. Jack carefully opened the hatch and peered into the chamber beyond. In the center, on a raised platform, sat a small crystalline object glowing with inner light. There it is, he whispered. The artifact. And no sign of the Void Stalkers, Lisa added. Yet, Marcus cautioned. They won't be far behind. Jack took a deep breath. Let's move. Quick and quiet. The 3 humans dropped silently into the artifact chamber, unaware that they were about to come face to face with the Dominion's deadliest warriors. The artifact chamber was a vast circular room with a domed ceiling. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing with a soft blue light. In the center, on a raised platform, the crystal artifact pulsed with energy. Jack moved forward cautiously, scanning for traps. Lisa covered their flanks while Marcus examined the room's technology with a practiced eye. Something's not right, Lisa whispered. Where are the defenses for the artifact itself? As if answering her question, the floor suddenly split open in a circle around the platform. From the gap rose a dozen hovering defense drones, each equipped with weapons that hummed with energy. There they are, Jack said. Any ideas? Before either teammate could respond, an explosion rocked the far side of the chamber. A section of wall collapsed, and through the dust and debris stepped the 3 Void Stalkers. Their armor was scorched and damaged. One limped slightly, while another had a deep gash across two of its four eyes. For a moment, both teams froze, surprised to see each other in the artifact chamber at the same time. The lead stalker recovered first. "Impossible," he growled. "How did these humans arrive before us?" The defense drones, now fully activated, began firing at both teams. The Void Stalkers deployed personal shield generators and returned fire with their advanced weapons. "Take cover," Jack shouted as he pulled his teammates behind a fallen column. The three cadets watched as the Dominion warriors battled the drones. Despite their impressive technology and combat skills, the Stalkers were struggling. Already exhausted from fighting through the station's main defenses, they were now facing a fresh wave of attacks. "They're not going to make it," Lisa observed as one of the Stalkers took a direct hit that shattered part of his shield. Marcus studied the drones, noting their flight patterns. "I think I see a weakness. The drones are connected to a central control node." He pointed to a small device on the ceiling. "If we could disable that, the drones might shut down." "But how do we reach it?" Jack asked. "It's 30 feet up." The three looked around the chamber. The Void Stalkers were pinned down behind barrier generators, unable to advance toward the artifact. "The gravity," Lisa said suddenly. "It's set for standard galactic norm. For us, it's only about half of Earth's gravity." Jack understood immediately. "We can jump higher, move faster. And the air is oxygen-rich by our standards," Marcus added. "We can push ourselves harder than we normally could." The three cadets formulated a quick plan. While the drones were focused on the Void Stalkers, Jack would make a run for the central platform. Lisa would provide a distraction, and Marcus would try to disable the control node. "Ready?" Jack asked. His teammates nodded. "Go." Lisa darted from cover, drawing the attention of several drones. With the reduced gravity, her movements were almost graceful as she leaped over energy blasts that would have caught her on Earth. Meanwhile, Marcus used the fallen debris as stepping stones, climbing rapidly toward the ceiling. His Earth-born muscles, evolved to work against much stronger gravity, propelled him upward in bounds that seemed impossible to the watching Void Stalkers. Jack waited for the perfect moment, then sprinted toward the central platform. The remaining drones turned to fire at him, but in the lighter gravity, he moved too quickly for their targeting systems to track effectively. From across the chamber, the lead Void Stalker watched in astonishment. "What are these creatures?" he growled to his teammates. Jack reached the platform and grabbed the artifact just as Marcus reached the control node and jammed his tools into its circuitry. The drones suddenly froze in midair, their weapons powering down. The humans had succeeded where the galaxy's most elite warriors had failed. The Void Stalkers stared in disbelief at the three cadets who stood triumphant, the artifact glowing in Jack's hand. The Earth advantage had proven decisive. Jack stood on the platform, the artifact glowing in his hand. Across the chamber, the three Void Stalkers had emerged from their defensive positions, weapons still raised but no longer firing. "The contest is over," the lead Stalker announced, his voice a mix of anger and reluctant respect. "The humans have claimed the artifact." Lisa and Marcus moved to stand beside Jack, forming a protective triangle around their prize. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. "We should leave now," Marcus whispered, "before they decide to take it by force." Jack studied the Void Stalkers carefully. They were wounded, tired, but still incredibly dangerous. Even with their Earth advantages, the cadets would likely lose in direct combat. "Wait," Jack said, an idea forming. "I think there's another way." To everyone's surprise, Jack stepped forward, holding the artifact out where all could see it. "This war has gone on for 100 years, he called out. "Both sides have lost too much." The lead Stalker's four eyes narrowed. "What are you doing, human?" The terms were clear. The winner takes all. The terms were that whoever retrieves the artifact settles the territorial disputes, Jack replied. They didn't specify how we should settle them. Lisa caught on immediately. "Jack's right. We could just divide the territories equally." The Dominion would never accept such terms, growled the second stalker, the one with the wounded eyes. Then what would you accept? Jack asked. Another 50 years of war. Another million deaths. The chamber fell silent as the Void Stalkers exchanged glances. Marcus stepped forward. Look, we all just went through hell to get here. We faced the same challenges, the same dangers. And right now, we're all stuck in this station with no guarantee the defenses won't reactivate. What are you suggesting? Asked the lead stalker. Cooperation, Jack said simply. We work together to get out of here. And then we propose a new solution to end the war, one that honors both sides. The third stalker, who had remained silent until now, spoke in a surprisingly thoughtful tone. In a century of combat, no one has suggested cooperation. That's because they've been thinking like soldiers, Lisa said, always looking for victory or defeat. We're thinking like survivors. Jack held out the artifact. What if we bring this back together? Tell both sides that the contest ended in a draw, but that we found something better than victory. The lead stalker stepped closer, his massive frame towering over Jack. For a tense moment, it seemed he might strike the human down. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. A deep, rumbling sound. In all my years of combat, I have never encountered warriors like you, he said. You reached the artifact chamber before us. Despite our superior technology and training, you disabled the drones when we could not. And now, when victory is yours, you offer compromise. Not compromise, Jack corrected. Collaboration. There's a difference. A new sound filled the chamber, an alarm. The station's systems were beginning to destabilize. We have minutes before this place tears itself apart, Marcus warned, checking readings on his small device. The lead stalker extended a four-fingered hand. I am Commander Vex. If we survive this, I will consider your human solution. Jack took the alien's hand, surprised by its warmth. I'm Jack. These are Lisa and Marcus. The exit is sealed the way we came, Lisa pointed out. Any suggestions? Vex gestured to his teammates. Our ship has cutting tools that could break through the outer hull, but we need to reach the docking bay first. And we know a shortcut, Marcus said with a grin. Within minutes, the unlikely alliance was moving through the station's maintenance tunnels, humans leading the way while Void Stalkers provided technical support to bypass security systems. They reached the docking bay with only seconds to spare, the station crumbling around them. A brutal war had raged for a century, and in just minutes, 6 warriors from opposite sides had found something neither faction had discovered in all that time. A way forward together. Admiral Thorne stood motionless on the observation deck of the Alliance flagship. Beside him, General Draz of the Dominion forces maintained an equally rigid posture. For the first time in a century, leaders from both warring factions occupied the same room without attempting to kill each other. Your cadets should have returned by now, Draz remarked, his scaled skin reflecting the starlight. Perhaps they failed. Before Thorne could respond, an officer rushed onto the deck. Admiral, 2 ships approaching, 1 Alliance, 1 Dominion. The view screen activated, showing the 2 vessels flying in perfect formation, a sight unseen since before the war began. This is impossible, General Draz whispered. The communication officer looked up in surprise. Sir, we're receiving a joint transmission from both ships. Put it through, Thorne ordered. The screen split to show Jack and Commander Vex standing side by side. Admiral Thorne, Jack began. We've completed the challenge. General Draz, Vex continued. The contest has concluded with an unexpected outcome. Jack held up the artifact, which glowed softly. We wish to present our findings to both commands simultaneously. 30 minutes later, the observation deck was filled with officers from both factions. Jack, Lisa, and Marcus stood at one end of the conference table, while the 3 Void Stalkers positioned themselves at the other. Between them sat the artifact, its light now pulsing rhythmically. The terms of the contest were clear. Admiral Thorne reminded everyone. The team that retrieved the artifact would determine how territorial disputes would be settled. And which team succeeded? General Draz demanded. Jack stepped forward. Neither. And both. Lisa explained how the human cadets had reached the artifact first, but chose cooperation over conflict when faced with the station's collapse. These humans, Commander Vex added, surprising everyone with his respectful tone, demonstrated capabilities we had not anticipated. They navigated routes we considered lethal. They adapted to challenges faster than our elite warriors. Marcus activated a holographic display showing their escape route. By combining Dominion technology with Earth ingenuity, we found solutions neither side would have discovered alone. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. Finally, General Draz spoke. What do you propose? Jack placed his hand on the artifact. This object contains data from an ancient civilization that faced similar conflicts. They discovered that true strength comes not from domination, but from diversity. Different worlds, different species, different approaches, all valuable. We propose a new form of governance, Lisa continued. Joint councils for disputed territories, with representatives from both factions and neutral worlds. And Earth? Admiral Thorne asked. Earth will serve as training grounds for a new joint force, Marcus answered. The harsh conditions that shaped us can help others develop resilience and adaptability. The discussions continued for hours, but the momentum was unstoppable. What had begun as a contest to end a war through victory had instead ended it through something far more powerful, mutual respect. 1 week later, Admiral Thorne stood at the window of his quarters, watching ships from both factions moving freely through space. The peace accord had been signed that morning, establishing the foundations for cooperation rather than conflict. A knock at his door preceded the entrance of Jack, Lisa, and Marcus, now wearing new uniforms that combined elements from both Alliance and Dominion designs. The first joint training program begins tomorrow, Jack reported. We've already received applications from 27 worlds. Thorne nodded, pride evident in his weary eyes. A century of war ended by 3 cadets from a forgotten Deathworld. Not just ended, Lisa corrected gently. Transformed. Outside, vessels from former enemy fleets practiced new maneuvers together, their lights tracing patterns of unity against the darkness of space. The Deathworlders' legacy would not be one of destruction, but of creation, building a peace stronger than any war.